Okay. Well, do you have any? Are we calling this Mystic Morts or something?
We call it Mystic Mort, yeah, after the esteemed non-sexist, non-racist archaeologist, Sir Mortimer Wheeler. People detect the irony in my voice there. Actually, the racist thing, the sexist thing, certainly, people will question.
Yes. Uh,
Um,
I do, and just to clarify, Mystic, that's a reference to Mystic Meg for our viewer outside the
Meg.
UK, or our listener.
Yeah, Mystic Meg was the astrologer on the late lamented News of the World, which
Hmm.
was closed down by News International, as was Rupert Murdoch's company for phone hacking.
Yes.
Mystic Meg was meant to be able to hack the future, but she's most well known for actually getting things entirely wrong. But yeah, she was the stereotypical fairground fortune teller with
Well, and so
with the sky.
what are your predictions then?
What
What should we be
Mystic
looking
Mystic?
out for in the
What's
coming decade?
right? I I'm going to have to be gloomy again, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I think, well, again, we didn't talk about it in the roundup per se, but certainly the international internationalization of damage to cultural sites,
Hmm.
which we saw most recently in Syria by so-called Islamic State,
Hmm.
means that the international aspect of heritage crime, I think, is going to become increasingly important again. You know, we're seeing a huge amount of pushback at the moment against President Trump over his claims that he's planning to attack important cultural sites in Iran in the event of a conflict with Iran, and also there are the issues of the illicit antiquities and the sale and cross border transfer of illicit antiquities, and brilliant work's been done in the last decade
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, by various of our colleagues. I won't name names here because that would be unfair on everybody in the sector. But it's become a more important issue. So the international aspects of heritage crime in its widest sense, I think, are going to become, unfortunately, more of an issue, and there are going to be questions asked of people like um, auction houses
Hmm.
over showing better provenance, having more responsibility about provenance,
Okay.
and so uh, so that one. And I think in the UK, again, we've avoided the B word, but currently the word is that Boris Johnson, newly elected British Prime Minister, is not going to seek a close alignment with the European Union over environmental and workers' rights rules and so on. If that goes ahead, expect arguments about rolling back things like the polluter pays principle in development
Hmm.
and development archaeology,
Hmm.
but also the rights of working archaeologists who are already some of the poorest paid and most insecure professionals, graduate professionals in the country, if not the most.
Mm. Yeah.
I think that's one to watch out for as well. And again, if that happens, there'll be significant pushback. Big stories to watch. The Stonehenge tunnel is probably the biggest. What happens there?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Uh, I agree with all of those. I suppose my prediction for the next decade is going to be uh, data, data. The rate at which data has been gathered and produced in the past decade has been from just as they say geometric. It's expanding at a geometric rate. Um, but it's a hockey stick graph. This has been pointed out to me by various people who I've talked to over the past over the lifetime of Archaeosoup, in fact. Um, but also in a very literal and real way, the fact that schlubs like me can have access to things like relatively high capacity things like a drone that can take 4K footage from X many hundred meters in the air. Um, obviously as a legal ceiling, I should stress, a legal ceiling,
Absolutely.
really indicates that not only are the capacities of Joe Public to observe heritage and history increasing, um, but the tools available to archaeologists with
Yeah.
increasingly less expense is only going to increase. The access to and the sample sizes needed for things like, for example, mass spectrometry are only
Yeah.
going to get smaller and less expensive. In fact, we're already seeing portable mass spectrometry. You can actually
Yeah.
point things at. I think it gives you a presumptive yes or yay or nay for things like biological
Mhm.
material, this kind of thing. But the fact that you
Yeah.
can do that with your hand now is quite, or something in your hand is quite impressive.
And I have to say, these things are being driven by outside industries. For example, things like you're talking about there, portable testing as something that's coming for law enforcement and the military and customs and excise
Yeah,
in terms of searches,
yeah.
doing quick searches on because the mass of
Mm.
material they're having to deal with. So these technologies that are applicable across are developed for one thing, but that we discover are incredibly useful for
Well, and that,
archaeology.
that goes all the way back to the builder's trowel, doesn't it? You know, the pointing trowel. Archaeologists have always used
Absolutely,
other tools.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I would make one point on data, or 2 points on data, in fact. One is, I think, to expect to see the increasing um, fracturing of archaeology and heritage as a sector, with specialisms becoming increasingly specialised, because there is now so much that it's very difficult to become an all-rounder.
hmm
It will increasingly research. Well, I mean, we're already seeing it in terms of DNA work, where people are complaining that people who are doing historical DNA work are not talking to the archaeologists who might tell a different story from the material culture.
yeah, yeah.
So look for those issues being worked out. Also, accessibility of data and conservation of data. Again, our colleagues. I remember 20 years ago talking when I was doing my first archaeological qualifications, when computing was just coming in, and there were already computer records that were unreadable
Yeah.
because they were on early computer software that was no longer readable by
Mm.
Windows-based machines that were just coming in then.
hmm
Um, and so the conservation of electronic data and the access to it, which brings me back again to the metal detecting as well. And we don't know, for example, what data is not being recorded by the PAS. We have got the review of the Treasure Act coming up. Supposedly, surely it was delayed by the general election. DCMS did run a consultation. They haven't announced the results yet. There is certainly pressure from some in the archaeological community for changes to be made to the Treasures Act, and one of which, one of the suggestions that's being floated is compulsory recording.
Yeah. hmm
Um, we don't know what the government reaction to that's going to be.
No, no, no.
They may not even, to be honest, they may even try and forget about the whole thing
Well,
because it won't be a priority.
yeah, and well, and there are other things they may well try and forget about. We'll cover that in the coming year as they turn up.
Yes.
Um, as
Yeah, well, yeah,
I suppose something
absolutely.
that's concurrent though, and this goes back to the builder's trowel, yeah, the pointing trowel, is that at the very least the issues that face us in terms of data, as you say, storage and management, but also actually data analysis, big
Mm.
data and analytical techniques. And the increasing acceptance that positivistic methods of essentially, sorry, pointing people towards what to record as opposed to recording the totality of something and letting
Yeah.
people in some future analysis look for what they need to find in that data. All of that is happening in other realms as well. So that at the very least, the computing solutions for that, the data storage solutions for that, the proprietary or public access file formats for this sort of stuff are things that society is having to deal with at the moment as
And the
well. So,
physical and a really
mm,
big one that is current at the moment, and you've alluded to it already in our conversation this morning, is just the physical
storage.
archiving of that archaeological material.
Yeah,
If that you know if that goes, if that can't be archived, you can't do the chemical analysis or the computer data or number crunching on the whatever.
yeah, yeah.
It's an in the round problem, and complex and multifaceted, and we know, as we've discussed all morning, those are the most difficult to deal with,
I think so.
to get people to engage with, because there aren't any simple solutions.
But
Certainly, that aren't simple and cheap.
no, no. But at the very least, we can take some heart in the fact that these aren't that some of these problems aren't just archaeological problems. So we'll be able
Yeah,
to benefit
our
from
society
other
is.
solutions as well, which
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
so it's something to keep an eye on. Well, there you go. Review of the decade. Congratulations,
Yeah.
Mr. Brockman. In well under 2 hours, I'm impressed. I'm quite
And
amazed.
our viewers there slumped on the sofa, glassy-eyed,
Exactly. What?
thinking, "What's on Netflix?" Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Night. I know. What's Nightfall? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, nightfall. Right. Okay. We're done. We're done. I'm gonna set you free, and
We're done. We're done with the teenies.
we're
The
done with the
teenies are
teenies.
behind us.
Yes, we're into the what are the twenties
The,
going to be
the,
called? Don't say
well,
it.
the
Don't
government,
say it.
Boris Johnson, or various people around, but Boris Johnson, newspaper columnists, want it to be the Roaring Twenties when
Oh,
Britain roars
I knew
ahead.
you were going to
In
say that.
yeah,
I
I
knew
know
it. I knew
exactly.
it. The problem is,
As many people have pointed out, the Roaring Twenties ended up in financial crash and fascism.
yeah, exactly,
Uh,
exactly,
so
exactly. So I would like a century that's not based on the previous century. That would be fantastic. Um,
yes,
but whatever we come to call the twenties, I guess the
yeah,
twenties, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Whatever we come to call the twenties, hopefully they're going to be good, and we will see you guys next month as ever for a regular watching brief. Until then, bye bye.
Happy New Year, Happy New Decade.
Yes, Happy New Year. I forgot to say that. Yeah, I said that as well. Happy New Year. Yeah, yeah. From both
Yeah.
of us. Yeah. Okay, bye.